Coffee is a big part of my day. Not only does it help me get through the morning, but I just really love the taste of good quality beans. Trade is a subscription service that brings great coffee from indie roasters all over the country right to your door. Tell Trade what you typically like, whether it's espresso or single origins or even decaf, even how you like to make your coffee, and they will recommend the right beans for you. Or you can just choose from over 450 different coffees. Then you select how often you'd like the coffee delivered to you. Shipping is always free, by the way. And if you need to skip a week or so, just do that. You can do it. No charge at all. Then pick back up when you're ready to get beans delivered to your door again. Go to unitedwedrink.com/trade to get started with Trade today and start getting some of the best coffees in the country delivered to your door. That's unitedwedrink.com/trade. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, coworkers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour? More like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another new episode of the United We Drink podcast right here on UnitedWeDrink.com, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever fine podcasts are found. My name is Mike Urevich, and I'm going to have to get used to doing this intro a little differently because I don't have to introduce just one person anymore. If you follow us on social media, you've seen the great news that we're now welcoming our friend and compatriot, Tim Johnson, to the show. Tim, thank you for joining us as a new co-host.
Well, thank you very much. It is an honor and a privilege, as some would say.
Oh, he's stealing gimmicks already. Kevin, what do you have to say about that?
It's fine. Mike usually introduces me and says that. What I'm looking forward to the most is, see, back in the day, what would happen is Mike would introduce Joel. Then Joel would talk for 5 or 10 minutes, and then Mike would respond, and I would be sitting there for 10 to 15 minutes, just not responding to anything, and then Mike would introduce me. So I'm hoping we can get that dynamic, and I just get basically like a quarter of the show just off. So let's get back to that, Mike.
That was some hazing for you being new to the show.
Yeah.
And also, since you were taking Phil's place, we were still so used to trying to tune Phil out and like push him out of the conversation that it just followed through on you for a while.
All fair.
Gentlemen, since this is an adult beverage podcast, what are we drinking tonight, Kevin? I'll start with you, so you're not left out.
So kind, so kind. So I've got Savage Life. We had Sam on from Savage Life, owner, head brewer. I have their Oak and Ember Fooder Age Pilsner, which is part of the Crown and Rose Society. It was the second batch ever of it. I'm drinking this. It's absolutely delicious. I love this beer. And I also have my backup is the NA Schoof Blonde Ale.
Oh, nice.
This is amazing. This is really, really good. I picked this up. I picked up the Weihenstephaner NA a while back, which I really liked. And it's nice to see some of the classic, European breweries doing NAs and doing them really, really well. And this is beautiful. So a couple Pilsners, blonde ales for me tonight.
You know, you picked up that bottle, and I immediately was like, oh, he's got a bottle of Schoof. Like, it's such an iconic looking bottle, but you didn't have the label towards me, and I didn't even know that they made an NA beer. So
it looks new to me. I mean, I picked this up maybe 2-3 weeks ago, but I've seen you know how it is in the market. We just get all these new NAs are flooding, and we're seeing more and more of the Sierra Nevadas, or I love the stuff they've put out. So it's really
that
like
Trail Pass IPA. You had it on here before. I found it at my local Publix. That is now, to me, hands down, best NA beer. To me, definitely the best IPA. It's still probably close with Guinness on like just the true tasting like a beer for NA. But man, that is a delicious NA beer.
I'll save one of these for you next time I see you. You can have this, and if you don't pick it up beforehand, you can try this Shoof.
Awesome. Tim, what are you partaking in?
I'm actually drinking a can, not just a can, but like can CANN, which is I'm not even drinking a beer. I'm drinking actually a THC and CBD product. It's only 2 milligrams of THC, so it's not really about the THC. It's more about the CBD. But this one happens to be grapefruit and rosemary, and that is delightful. It is very refreshing, very relaxing, very. I've had a hard day at work, and grapefruit and rosemary is something I can sip on and very much enjoy.
Is this one of the products that you make?
No, this is not one that we make. I did what was it called? The wine and food experience or something at the Vikings practice facility. It's like a big vendor event with VIP access and blah 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 blah. I did that, and at the end of the festival, we all just trade products around, and so this is one that I brought home. It was a product that I traded for, and it is absolutely fantastic.
Nice. And so it's only 2 milligrams of THC for the entire can, or is that one of those crazy per serving and there's 25 servings in it?
No. This is literally only 2 milligrams of THC for the can, so it's not something where I'm going to feel any like real high off of or anything like that. It's more just something that's going to help kind of relax me and get me into kind of a tempered mood.
Nice. Well, we shall see by the end of the episode.
It's very important. Things can get very stressful around here, when you're a regular host and not just, coming in as a guest.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sure it's going to be much more intense.
If Tim starts saying a whole bunch of Mitch Hedberg's drug related jokes, then we know that it's hitting him.
Well, I don't have to be high to quote Mitch Hedberg. I feel like I kind of just generally break those out and like all the time, frankly.
And that's why we love you. I'm drinking out of a can as well. I am having some Lummox. It is Citra dry hop cider from Plowman Farm Ciders in Pennsylvania. I've probably had this on the show before, but I've mentioned Plowman a number of times. I'm a member of their Plowshares. It's a quarterly box club that they send bottles of cider and stuff too. So I love this. Citra and cider Citra goes well with anything. I'm sure you can. It's in hop water, it's in ciders, it's in beers. Put it in some Sauvignon Blanc, and it's probably amazing too.
Probably, yeah.
So there ain't much wrong with Citra. Also have a little bit of bourbon, and I have hop water too from Lagunitas. I love their hoppy refresher. It's been my favorite hop water that I've had thus far.
I do want to jump in before we get into the meat of the episode. I want to mention, one of the reasons why Tim is joining us full time is one, we had a great episode a few weeks back, but also because, as Mike would tell me, Tim would usually be yelling at his phone whenever we would say something maybe he didn't agree with or he had a comment for. Now he doesn't have to yell at his phone. He can do it in real time. But I do want to remind you, we have microphones. You don't have to yell at me. I'm assuming it's me. You don't have to yell at me. I'd be happy to concede the floor when and if I say something stupid. So I just want to throw that out there.
No, I appreciate that. I wouldn't say that I yelled at you so much as I was just disappointed by. Is that maybe a better way to put it?
My dad told me that all the time growing up. My parents, most my teachers, most adults said no, that's not true, especially about my dad. But it wasn't have been as funny if I didn't say that. Go ahead.
I think that we have an interesting dynamic here that I didn't realize until today. That we have two AL Central fans now on this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
with a Twins and Tigers fan. And I saw someone who was predicting them possibly being number 1, number 2, flip-flopped in the AL Central and both making the playoffs for this season.
That's insane because the AL Central is terrible overall, and you're going to have 2 teams out of the East, and anyway, probably 3 teams out of the East. But the Tigers were the Twins and Tigers were 1 and 2 last year. So
absolutely. They're both really good squads. The Twins bring back a couple of really good aces, and I think between Royce Lewis and a couple of the other players that we have coming, we're gonna have a lot of guys pretty healthy. It should be a lot of fun. Certainly, I would love to go to a game with you, Kevin, and we can talk trash to each other the entire time. I think it'd be great.
Well, the sneaky plan here is that we're going to kick Mike out and we're going to call this the Tiger Twin Cast, and then we're just going to talk baseball, and Mike can be out on his little island with his Phillies.
I think that's a great idea.
And we'll just talk about when you guys trade us a good player at the trade deadline, and you just tell me how good they are, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, how did Michael Lorenzen work out for you?
Got us a couple wins.
He threw a no-hitter and then had a 7.5 ERA the rest of the way and was left off the playoff roster.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He wasn't left off. He just didn't go into any games.
Were we talking about beer at some point or alcohol? I don't know. I forget what this podcast was about again.
If you listened to last week, it's donuts.
Yeah, that's true. So. Yeah. It was all about donuts.
United We Donut. So we wanted to talk about beer awards, beer competitions. We did a episode on beer competitions back in the very early parts of restarting this show. It was episode 17, and that was before the world fell apart, and we have still not put it back together. So it is a very different world. And beer competitions, I think, mean completely different things at this point in time. And we are in the midst of World Beer Cup season. Today, over the course of 1 hour, I saw 3 different posts about breweries filling their competition beers and getting ready to send them out. Today, also strangely, too, as we're recording this on the 13th, Untapped released their 2023 awards for the highest rated beers in different categories of style and locations. So I figure, let's rehash this. Let's talk about beer competitions, awards, what they mean, if anything. And so Kevin, you've worked for now 2 different breweries. 3. Forgot about the middle one in there. And through the course of those times, were competitions ever really important to any of those places?
I cared a lot about competitions early on because I was raised in the United States of America. And I don't know if any of you guys or listeners have noticed this, but competition's a pretty big, hairy deal. And everyone wants to win. So I really cared about them. I would follow Great American Beer Fest and World Beer Cup and things of that nature. And even like the local Florida Brewers Guild festival that handed out their own awards. It was kind of a big deal. And when I started Barrel of Monks, definitely, I believe Bill McPhee particularly really cared about putting our beers in for Great American Beer Fest and World Beer Cup. But that's definitely trailed off over the years. And the high-minded part of me says it's because it doesn't really matter. And it's kind of trivial. And the best beers in the world sometimes win, sometimes they don't. Sometimes bad beers, in my opinion, get through, or mediocre beers. Oftentimes the best beers, in my opinion, in a category don't medal. That's where my high-minded self comes in. And then the lower lizard brain realizes maybe it's because I never won. and I secretly suck, and I don't want to hurt anymore. And that's, part of that as well. Even though, we won, local medals and things like that here and there. But I think there's a happy medium in there. I do think that it's frustrating when you're not recognized, when you think you've got a great product. But then there's also the realistic aspect of, our wit beer made it to like the third round of voting 3 years in a row for, not 3 years in a row because they do it every other year, but for World Beer Cup. And the notes were too many good beers. So we got kicked out. And it's like, okay, we make good beer. It's gonna be a coin flip if we ever medal, that kind of deal. So my passion for this and my interest in it has definitely wavered over the years.
Were you with us at the previous brewery when we won best brewery at the Best Florida Beer competitions?
Yeah.
Okay, you were.
I was brewing there, yeah.
Okay, that was probably 14, 15, somewhere around there. Yeah, we won the best overall brewery. We were runner up for best in show. That beer itself won a gold medal in the Imperial Stout category. Pretty big deal at the time. Like that was when Imperial Stouts just alone were an important thing. And I remember we were all super stoked about that. We were proud of it, and it is a thing. And that's, I think, to me, what's the biggest point of these is pride. Is it allows the people who work hard on those beers to get a pat on the back from someone who they don't know really, and it's nice to be admired for your work by your peers and by a group of people who you don't know. So, I mean, I think that was the biggest factor, because I don't even really remember getting a huge pump in any sort of sales or business because of that.
No one ever knew that, and that's one of the big things. And I'll talk about that at length. But I think, Tim, what has been your experience in your journey in medals and competitions?
Yeah, so the very first brewery I worked at was a GABF gold medal winner. So that was not just a trivial, not to say that like, regional or local or awards or whatever are trivial, but like that was a GABF gold medal winner. And I will say two things about that. One, so not only did we win gold at JBF with one beer, we also at the US Beer Open won gold with two other beers, and all three of those beers got killed. So winning awards did not sell those beers. 100%. Winning awards did not sell beers. Did it sell our brand? I actually think it did. Like it helped, particularly at the time. Now maybe it's very different here because this was in 2014 or whatever, right? And 10 years later, like the landscape of craft beer is significantly different. But I do think it sold the brand in that, hey, these aren't just home brewers trying to open a brewery. This is a legitimate brewery putting out actual quality beer. And I think if you don't look at it from a direct 1-to-1 ROI on did it winning an award get me X amount of dollars, no, you can't do that. But when you say, does it establish you as a brand? Maybe. Like, it does legitimize you. I think, a couple weeks ago when we talked about how craft beer sold itself short as that cheap luxury or what was the term, Mike?
Affordable luxury.
Affordable luxury. Okay, sorry, cheap luxury. God, I can't believe I screwed that up.
You monster! You know what? I'm regretting this already, Mike. No,
Fired.
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, you guys should. You should. But no, but the idea is that there are certain brands that I think can use that to help push that, and I think at Badger Hill, again, we had to cancel all of our award-winning beers. They weren't selling. But that said, people still would come, like, beer influencers and whatever would come in and talk about the awards on our wall, and other people would talk about that, and a lot of people would say that we were one of the undersung breweries in the state and all of that. I think there was something that established that brand as a quality brand for people who didn't like. I mean, again, this was 2014. People didn't even know what quality was, frankly, in beer. And so for them to go, oh well, someone else said this is quality. Well, then it's quality, and I think that was my experience with it early on.
Do you think that anything has to do potentially with your location? Like Minnesota has a much more rich history of brewing with more longer term breweries that have been around, like August Shell and Surly and Summit and places like that are kind of like pioneers of brewing in the United States. That maybe that more established culture, those types of things appeal to people more.
I mean, it certainly could. I don't know. I don't know that I've necessarily thought about it that way. I think we just in general, I mean, I think Minnesotans love their awards. I mean, I know everyone loves their awards, but we have this weird kind of hubris here where we love to like bank on how people think we're nice and how people think this, and we always applaud our James Beard award winners and all of that. And I think it's because we're like this. Maybe it's because we think of ourselves as like upper crust Midwest. You know what I mean? I think we like to put ourselves on par with like Chicago as like a, we're like a fancy city in the Midwest. We're not Fargo. We're not Des Moines. We're not Omaha. We're like a fancy city.
You're not Detroit, for crying out loud.
Yeah, exactly. But I think I think maybe that's maybe the regional thing, right? But no, you do make a good point of that we already had these like well established, Shell's one of the longest family owned breweries in the country, and Summit, one of the literally one of the founders of the first wave of craft beer in the early 90s. Surly, one of the founders of the second wave of craft beer in the early 2000s. Yeah, no, that's I hadn't really thought about that. That's an interesting point.
I think, Mike, and what you guys were just discussing is that we oftentimes, and this is one of the great things about having Tim here, is not just having our regional perspective on things, but we could have 1,000 different regional perspectives. Does it matter in North Dakota? Does it matter in upstate New York? Does it matter in Southern California? There are probably different answers for every one of those things. As educated as the clientele is going to be, as passionate as they are, we have built a level of education in South Florida and Florida in general that revolves around the, hype culture.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't really care if you win. The brewery that wins gold medal for Amber Ale, if they're in Miami, no one's going to go, ooh, we all have to go down there. They're going to say, well, do you have an Imperial Stout with Snickers in it that I can trade to some guy in Des Moines? Right? That's all they care about. And the rest of the clientele, they don't know that that beer awards exist. So there's a very small subset of the population that would be following this, that would know about it. And the one thing I didn't mention about my experience is I forget I am a part owner of Odd Breed Wild Ales, which seems to medal in pretty much every single competition we put a beer in. And it's not like people are beating down the doors because we won a gold medal for Wild Ale, right? It's nice. You put it on your social media and people are proud of you. And the people that know the beer is good, they're like, yeah, of course. That's why they won, because they're very good. But it doesn't really change the perception. It doesn't pick up the sales. And I think for the most part, it's a kind of like a meh thing in this market. But I can see it being a bigger deal in others.
I mean, I'm in the land of Pabst Blue Ribbon, right? They're for 180 years they've been marketing off of a Blue Ribbon win. Like seriously, like the whole thing is Pabst Blue. Also, you look at one of my favorite beers of all time, Great Lakes Dortmunder. It's Dortmunder Gold because it won a gold, right? One of my all-time favorite beers, but it's Dortmunder Gold because it won a gold. It's kind of along the same lines as Pabst Blue Ribbon, I guess. I think maybe we just have a different approach to beer here. Is that we are all, we're proud of what we do, and like brewing isn't seen as kind of this cute little niche like in Florida. I think it's more seen as like this cute little niche thing, whereas in the Midwest it's seen as this old classic blue collar, like brewers belong to a union, and like they all put on a brewer shirt and work, and it's more of a blue collar job, where as opposed to this kind of like bistro mentality.
Before Mike, you jump in there because I know you want to, and it's your turn. Let's say, can you do me a big favor, Tim? Because I've been wanting to do Dortmunder Gold on Old Favorite Friday for Barrel of Monks for as long as that series has been going. It's one of my favorite beers of all time. It's not available down here.
Okay.
I will pay you you could just give me $1. I'll figure out how to Venmo. I'll have my wife figure out how to Venmo you, and then we'll go from there, because I need to get my hands on a 6-pack because I love that
No,
beer with all my heart.
I will absolutely. You know what? I will bring it down personally, and I can be the guest on your Old Favorite Friday.
Be still my beating heart. Still my beating heart.
Making stuff
great.
happen. United we drink. Making stuff happen since some point. But I think that a lot of that goes back to what I was saying with a more rooted tradition in brewing in that area, like where naming a beer after your award was something that you could do because you were around then before so many others, before literally thousands of other breweries, and it possibly helped you a lot more back then for something like that. I mean, I still I've never met the gentleman in person, but we've talked online. I know Tim knows him, Dave Berg from August Shell. Like when he posts stuff about that brewery and posts like the pictures of the brewers, they look like brewers from like the 1920s. Like they're wearing coveralls and plaid shirts with their names on them, or work shirts with their names on them. Like I know they're an old school brewery, but they still
literally are part of a union. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's so funny because like last summer I went down and hung out with Dave at the brewery, and he walked me around, but it literally feels like, in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of new technology and all that stuff, and they got new canning lines and things like that, but so much of that building, because it's been around since the 1800s, so much of that building feels like where Laverne and Shirley worked. You know what I mean? Like it's got that old school kind of brewery vibe, and it's so funny. Like the way, like literally, they get their grain in like 2 stories above the mash tun. So literally, the way they grain in on things that aren't like super sacks or from the silo is to literally just like cut open the bags and let them fall through a hole in the floor. Like it's that type of old school type of vibe. So yeah, no, you have a really good point, Mike, that we do have more of a, man, I hate to say this word, but I'm gonna say it. I think we have a more respect for brewing and brewers, and I don't mean that in like people don't love, get super hyped about brewers down there. But I think there's more just a.
You mean the consumer has more respect for brewers, or the brewers have more respect for brewers? Like,
both, right?
Okay.
I mean, there's a good chance that a consumer has known someone who worked at Shells. You know what I mean? And they don't romanticize what that guy at Shells does, right? They don't romanticize what their uncle did at the Hams Brewery, right? Because it's more seen as like a trade rather than like this
cool thing. Like,
yeah, like we all went through this thing where we all got into brewing, and all of our homebrew friends all of a sudden thought we were doing something like cool or romantic or whatever. And we all know like the people that think of like the random craft brewer around town as like this like superhero or something like like I've literally had people ask for an autograph. That's like how dumb craft brewing is, right?
I
But I-
fucking had that too. It is absolutely dumb.
It is so dumb, but at the same time, there's a lot of people, like Hams, local brand, right? Land of Sky Blue Waters.
I forgot that they are.
Yeah, that's a St. Paul brand originally, right? And so I think we all had someone who just wore a blue work shirt and blue work pants and clocked it, punched in and punched out, and it was more like a trade than it was something super sexy, right?
Yeah.
I think that's consistent. I mean, I left Michigan when I was still 21 and I was not huge into the craft beer culture. But even the beers that I did know, Bell's and some other breweries from around there at that time, I got that same vibe, and I still get that same vibe. That there's just kind of a similar respect for brewing culture in Michigan, which is a little bit different than the hype culture that we have down here.
Is respect the fair word for that?
I
I'm not
think so.
trying to disparage
I
Florida.
I don't know
No,
about
no, disparage us, please. No, we take punishment.
Respect. Like when you first started saying that, I wasn't sure where you were going, and I don't know if respect is the right word, but I can't think of a better one right now. It is just that
Appreciation, maybe.
that appreciation for what they do and not inflating it more than what it is.
Correct.
I think that might be a good way of putting it in way more words than necessary. Because like you said, there are people who now look at brewers and people who work in breweries as like, oh, you have the coolest job in the world, man. And it doesn't need to be like that. Because I when I was in the brewery, it's like I'm a fucking glorified janitor, man.
Yeah.
Like I just work with some way different equipment than a janitor, and I move liquid from places to other places and varying sizes of places.
I think the best case scenario is what we're talking about is just having the proper place in the hierarchy of the society. Like we make something that's very good that can be appreciated by a lot of people, and but we're also there's also really shouldn't be rock stars, and none of this is magic. So like respect the dude that makes a really good lager and doesn't put the bells and whistles on him and go, hey, good job, man. And that's enough. I think that's kind of a good metric or a good level.
I think for me the irony here though is that basically what we've come to is in the areas where people don't inflate brewers and they just see them as like blue collar workers, they care more about awards. And in the places where brewers are seen as rock stars, the consumers care less about awards. I guess I don't entirely understand how to parse that yet.
Well, the rock star. Oh, go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
I think that to go along with what Tim was just saying there are breweries who are considered like rock stars in the eyes of like the beer geeks who don't even enter competitions for various reasons.
They don't have
the
good
one
beer.
that I always like to hear the most is they're afraid of losing.
Wow.
They don't want their ego to be deflated.
It's also
but
expensive as shit to enter a beer into a competition anyway.
which is a
good
point that I
too.
wanted to get to, and maybe we might as well just move into that. I have right here. I was looking it up earlier. The fees associated with World Beer Cup. It is $185 per beer, which is I haven't looked at these. This has to be way higher than it used to be because I don't ever remember it being nearly $200 the last time I entered World Beer Cup.
Boy, I feel like it's been that way for a while, honestly.
Yeah,
okay, then maybe it's just that GABF is less. I know that GABF is less, but man, like you can enter up to 10 beers. You enter all 10 beers, it's almost $2,000 just in entry fees. And they don't cover your shipping
Which is expensive.
of any of this. Like it is a lot of money.
Yeah, it is.
You-
And for like a bigger brewery, $2,000 maybe isn't a big deal. But for a place like Copper Point, what do you guys do? Like 2, 3, whatever.
We bet 2,100 barrels.
Yeah, exactly.
last year.
Right. So these places, that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
I've looked at this as it's a cost benefit analysis. If
And
we
it's
win,
a marketing fee,
yeah,
thing too.
if we win, it's purely pride. I do not believe in our market that if we won a gold medal at this point, it would do anything for our bottom line. And I think, as opposed to what Tim was saying earlier, I don't think it would help establish us in the eyes of anybody. I think the market has either A, changed since that time that you were speaking about, or B, maybe never was like that in Florida because there's some regionality to it. So the last time I seriously considered putting beer in, I looked at the numbers. I also said, okay, what beers would I want to do? Well, there's 4 categories I think we could do very well in. You want to hedge your bets and not just put one beer in because you want a medal, and you're looking at this and go, this is going to be really expensive. We will get absolutely nothing out of it. I could take $2,000 and do a boosted Facebook post for our anniversary party and maybe actually make some money off of it. And at the end of the day, if we win, it's just me patting myself on the back and saying how great we are. It doesn't seem to do anything but to be an ego boost on our side at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think you do raise a really good point. Is like if it's not going to move the needle, and you're right. It probably was good at establishing brands 10 years ago, but at this point, there's so many breweries in the country, and I almost don't know a brewery who hasn't won one award or another. Right? That especially to the general consumer who doesn't know that World Beer Cup and GABF are like the big ones, and not like.
They're essentially the same. They just for one decide, okay, everyone outside of the U.S. you can participate too.
Yeah, but I mean, like, there's so many breweries out here that won the North Metro Chamber of Commerce Brewery Award, right? Where it's like them and like one other brewery, hey, that's an award, and they can put that award up there, right? Like, and I don't think the general consumer understands the difference between Pete's Backyard Barbecue and GABF anymore. Because there's so many, because the market proliferation of craft beer in general has made people confused, and then there's it's like festivals, right? I remember 10 years ago there were like 3 beer festivals, and then now it's like there's 15,000 beer festivals that you could possibly go to. Like, everything has just gotten out of hand that I don't think awards at this point. There are a lot of places that are probably still touting their awards, and they're probably able to do it, and they get really good within the niche markets, right? Like they're like, sorry, I'm gonna digress a little bit here, but there are breweries that aren't necessarily good, but for whatever reason, all the brewer people say they're good, right? Like they're, you know what I mean? Like there are some breweries that have just got this reputation within the brewer community as being really good, and you go there and you go, I don't get it. And Mike, you look like you want to say something.
I was going to say something to something else, but just go ahead and finish your point.
Okay, well, my point was, like, I don't know that even within the brewing community, let alone the general market, even within the brewing community, that we respect awards like we used to.
No, and I almost feel like these awards, though they don't technically have an expiration date, they do have an expiration date in the minds of consumers and peers. Like I have heard brewers make fun of other brewers for still touting a GABF medal from over 10 years ago. Like, oh yeah, you're still hanging your hat on that post.
Pabst is still looking at that blue ribbon win from 1844, man.
and I kind of get that. Like I'm like I don't want to be someone who just rests on their laurels of like this one-time thing that we had. Like I've put some perspective into this. Like Copper Point won a GABF gold medal for chocolate beer in 2018, the year before I started working there. I started working there right after 2019 GABF, and at that point on, we have never entered another GABF after that time. And yes, the world fell apart, but we've only entered one competition since then, and it was a honey beer competition, and I thought it would be, we had a brand new brand that we started that had honey in it, and I thought it would be kind of cool to enter that beer into it. It was a relatively low priced entry fee, and I was like, you know what, we can this. It's an easy enough thing to take a few cans of that for a $35 entry fee and enter it into this, and possibly get something that we can brag about a little bit. If we get the Palm Beach Post picks up something about it, awesome. But since then, we haven't done anything else on it. I just have not seen. I have said to my boss, I think that this money can be spent better on boosting posts, like Kevin said, to promote our events locally, and just to buy little things here and there that we need in the brewery. Because yeah, $185 entry fee thing for us just doesn't make a whole lot of sense for that type of marketing, essentially.
I want to play devil's advocate for a second here when you were talking about, well, not always, but I want to make a point about the 10-year-old medal, the 15-year-old medal. I won't go as far back as Pabst Blue Ribbon, but I'll go back pretty far. In the fact that
God said, let there be light, and then said, and Pabst, you get this.
Yeah, you get a blue ribbon, and no one else ever does in the history of mankind.
There's only 3 beers available, so yeah, you were gonna ribbon anyway.
Congratulations! It's like being the nicest guy in prison. So, what I wanted to say about this is that mentality of not, and I understand what you're saying about people making fun of resting on your laurels and this, that, and the other. But one of the principles I've always felt in my beer community is that we have a lot of respect for classic brands, and we understand that things like Sierra Nevada and brands like New Belgium that have made incredible classic beers and made them consistent for 10, 15, 20 years is something to be respected and something that we should kind of edify and say, hey, this should be the benchmark that we're trying to go to. So I don't know what beers you're talking about, but I'll just give you an example of Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. If Sierra Nevada was still resting on their laurels of a gold medal they won 15 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, was an incredible beer then. They've made it the exact same way for the next 20, 30 years, and it's an incredible beer now. That medal is still kind of valid as long as they've kept up their quality. And the market has changed on whether or not they're going to medal today. But it shows that at one point they were, specially recognized for what they do. I guess what I'm getting at is, we want to really notice those legacy brands and those beers that have stood the test of time as the market has moved on, as the marketing has moved on, but they're still there delivering the goods like they always have. And I think that's kind of important.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some beers that are classics that can still continue to win their category to this day, right? Because they're literally the rubric by which all the judges that come in are already judging those things. And so I think the dichotomy here is that we all know a brewery that makes shit beer that won an award, right? We all know something that won gold at JBF that every other time we've had it ever since then was not that good. We know some of that stuff happens, but when there are certain, like Allagash White wins year after year after year after year, and I think there's something to that where we need to just figure out the balance between, you know, sometimes beers win because they're really, really good, and sometimes they just random. And I think that's the part where, like, if something is continually winning, then I trust it. If something won in a fluke, maybe not.
I think that there's a place here for kind of sports analogy in sorts of like continually winning over many years is like building a dynasty.
Yeah.
Where I think that winning something 15 years ago is like how fucking Cowboys fans still say we won 3 out of 4 Super Bowls in the early 90s, and you're like, yeah, shut the fuck up, and you haven't gone to the Super Bowl since then. There's something to that. You can't take that away from them. Yes, they still have those, and like the fans of that are still going to be proud of that. But it is a little funny to just continually bring up something like that has been so long, like where you could. This is where beer really differentiates itself from sports, in that you can be proud of being a consistent product and being a well-selling product through all of that time.
Hi, I'm a Minnesota Twins fan. We have not won anything significant since 1991, but we are very proud that we are always in like the top 2 in the AL Central. So you can be proud of being consistent and underachieving. Just to be clear,
you but that's not even underachieving. Like, you can. Sierra Nevada Pale Ale is still a very good selling beer. So like, being a good selling beer and being consistent in the quality of your product is something that you can be proud of. That has nothing to do with medals. So maybe there's some people at Sierra Nevada who are from Minnesota and
I was gonna say, you literally just called Sierra Nevada the Minnesota Twins of beer, which is as a Twins fan, that you are selling Sierra Nevada way short. One other thing I wanted to get into, I know we're going to wrap up here very soon, but one other thing I want to get into about competition that used to be helpful, that is now worthless to me, is feedback, right? That used to be one of the reasons why you enter beers into GABF, is because you're going to get feedback from some of the, like, the premier beer tasters in the world. And I felt like, again, 10 years ago, I got good feedback. 5 years ago, 3 judges described the beer wildly different, right? Like, one would say it's way too sweet for the style. The other one would say it's way too dry for the style. It's too bitter for the style. It's not bitter enough for this. Like, they were terrible. So I used to get good feedback, and now the feedback is horrible. And I don't know if you guys have seen that over the years. I mean, Kevin, how many beers have you entered, and have you seen that shift, or is it always just been bad down there?
So the only time when I was brewing for other breweries, I saw nothing. So we entered beer competitions. I never saw anything. When I started being the person that would enter them, that was already within, because Barrel of Monks is just celebrating its 9th anniversary. So I was only really getting into this around less than 10 years ago, and very sporadic. I mean, I remember getting back comments on our wizard, and the comments were worthless. There was nothing really to it. It just said, "Good beer, too many other good beers." That was literally the comment on one of the things. And very similarly, I think we entered our Father Christmas many times because we really cared about that beer in the spice beer category. And you would see wildly different descriptions of the beers, sometimes illegible. I mean, they were like handwritten things.
So many of those people wanted to be doctors.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we were talking about the price of admission, I understand if a competition essentially like kind of prices if the business of the competition gets to a certain point where it starts to exclude breweries like me, that's the market. That's kind of it's there to make money. It's there to promote craft beer or what have you. But they're trying to cover all their expenses and bring in all these judges, and so many people want to enter, so many people have to be involved in it. They're not really out there to like make our lives better. They're there to run a competition. And if we had this like a limited competition with, we could only take 50 entries, the first 50 to sign up in this lottery or whatever, get to go into this, and you're going to get 6 beer judges are going to judge and critique every single beer and give you feedback, and they're certified and they are monitored, and they have they didn't just pass an online test. Like, they're people that you would respect and take their critique in. It might be a much more valuable thing. I might pay $500 a beer if I was getting somebody really delving into my wit beer and saying, this is how you can make it better. Like, that could be valuable.
I remember one time talking to Ray Daniels at JBF, right? And he at that point was judging IPAs, and I asked him how judging was going. I talked to him mid-session, and he's like, your palate gets wrecked. I don't know. After 4 of them, they all taste the same, right? And this is literally the guy who started the Cicerone program, and he's just like, your palate gets wrecked. Like, you can't. If we're being honest, if you're drinking, because the number of entries has grown over the years, right?
Yeah.
And and so, how many beers can you drink before they all? I'm not saying because you're drunk. I'm just saying they all just start to taste the same after a while. It has to be harder and harder and harder to judge those things after your 20th entry.
We had last year we had Tommy Kelly on the show from Free State, and he has been a judge for GABF for many, many years, and we talked to him about that, and just hearing that, like, he gets like a flight of 10 beers to judge, and it's like, holy fuck, like, I can see where palate fatigue can come on super fast on stuff like that. To chime in on the notes, like, I remember the earliest notes, like, so many being illegible, and I've hardly ever recalled good feedback. There was times where multiple it was like I remember entering our like Mexican chocolate like imperial porter into the spice beer category. Like, not enough spice, too much spice. This is too chocolatey. It should be in the chocolate beer category. Put it in the chocolate beer category next year. Like, too spicy, should be in the spice beer category.
Yeah.
That's where it was before.
I had
contradictory stuff.
I had a judge that it was a strawberry blonde with natural strawberry juice, and the feedback was, this is obviously fake strawberry.
I don't know which is more frustrating, is those contradictory ones, or the ones that are where they don't put a whole lot of notes. They just write to style, and then for the ultimate, like, overall, not to style, don't pass on. It's like, I saw that so many times as they ticked all the way to the right or left, I don't remember which one, on their scale that says to style, not to style, and it's like all the way to the to style, like, look, aroma, taste, mouthfeel, and then it's like not to style.
They just
move on.
They just let untapped users be judges. That's it.
I think, guys, I think this is all down to the nature of judging. I mean, this is such a subjective thing. And I've said it for years. If you give a judge 10 IPAs and you have him rank those IPAs, bring them back tomorrow, have him rank them again. It's going to be in a different order. And I saw this in the wine world when I worked as a wine steward for years. Think about the Oscars or any competition. If you just ran the experiment again, you'd get different results. Think about your favorite IPAs right now. Rank them in order. you're going to change your mind tomorrow. It's just, there is a necessity for us. And I mentioned it as a joke early on, like we live in the United States, like we need to win. We need to be the best. I was coaching my son in baseball for the first time last year, and I had an assistant coach, really, really nice guy. I enjoyed coaching with him. He's a cool dude. But one of the first thing he said to a bunch of 5-year-olds who did not really know what a baseball was yet, not a single kid other than one on my team could catch a baseball in a glove, right? And he's saying to these 5-year-olds in a non-competitive league where there are not multiple teams, it's basically a glorified practice 7 weeks in a row, was go home and look at other baseball players on TV and mimic them because you want to be the best, don't you? And I'm sitting there going, no, they don't want to be the best. They want to have fun. They're 5. We don't need to drill this into their heads. Not a single one of these kids is ever going to play Major League Baseball. Statistically, it's impossible. And I think we get into this mentality that if we don't have the best brown ale, we don't have a good brown ale. That's just nonsense. There's lots of good beer out there. The judges are subjective, and if the experiments run again, you get different results.
I don't remember exactly, but I know that once you, Kevin, when you were still working at the Buddha Lounge, you and Ryan had me and a couple other people come over one night and do some blind IPA tastings that included batches of Hop Gun that you guys were working on at the time and some commercial examples. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you guys put some of the same beers into there twice to see if there would be a different response to the beer, like the first time or the second time, like throughout the whole evening.
I can confidently say that I have absolutely no recollection of that evening. So let's go with, that's a better story. Yeah, we were trying to trick you.
Yeah. And kudos, I believe you tricked me because I'm very gullible and trickable. So in conclusion, medals fun, medals also don't do anything, right? Yes, Mike. Yes.
How articulate to have you? Your entire articulation has fallen off by the end of this episode. You've become a caveman.
That's amazing.
Wait, am I the one who has the THC beverage?
I love lamp.
I'll say one more thing about this. And early on, we were talking about kind of like patting on the back and getting recognition from your fellow brewers, and I think that's an important aspect of this. I often, when anytime I'm talking about Barrel of Monks beer on the show, Mike always makes fun of me because I'm pitching, which most of the people that are listening to this can't buy our beer because they don't live in the state, and they're certainly not going to take my.
Also, because whenever it gives you a chance to do a plug, you have nothing to say.
But see, I stealthily work them into the show. You see what I'm doing?
He does product placement.
I'm crafty.
Yeah.
But the point is, what I'm trying to say is that, obviously I'm proud of my beer, but part of that also is, I like giving a shout out to Ralph. I loved giving a shout out to Joel when he was the head brewer, to Tim Buzz when he was the head brewer. I love being able to just say, hey, listen, this is not because I'm at work with you and we're talking about something and this is not ubiquitous. This is a great beer. It's amazing. You did a great job. And I really think it's important for us, even as brewers and friends. I take such stock in what Mike says when I bring a beer to him and I give it to him and I go over in the corner and I bite my nails and I'm like, is Mike going to like it? But when Mike really kind of gives a look like, yeah, this is really good, I get a little pride and I go tell Ralph about it. I think as long as we're giving each other that kind of feedback and really showing when we care about something and when we think something's good, maybe we won't need so many freaking medals. Maybe we'll just be confident in ourselves and the people we've chosen to stay around.
See, I've always, well, not always. That's hyperbolic. Over the last 5 or so years, it is just words of praise and encouragement from my peers and random people sometimes that really just give me a high. Like anytime that you have brought me a beer, Kevin, that I have really enjoyed, I know that you go and tell Ralph. I also tell Ralph directly myself, because I believe that he should hear from the horse's mouth as well. Like that, I think that this beer that he made was really good, and like I believe that is really helpful to people in general. This past weekend, I texted you about this. You didn't respond to it, so I'll just bring it up again. I got a chance to meet one of your bartenders, Emilio. Awesome dude. I've been following him on Instagram for a while because he's an awesome photographer. He's a great wildlife photographer, and I saw him walking around with a beer, and I called him out, and like we've talked online but never met in person, and I was like, "Hey, I'm Mike," and we got to talking, and he was like, "Your stuff is so beautiful," and he and then two other people just randomly told me like, "Hey, I love your photography." I'm like, Jesus Christ, like that type of stuff means so much more to me than any sort of medal. Is hearing peers, like people who I know a little bit, or people just random strangers being like, "Hey, you do a great job at the job that you do." I love and I cherish that type of stuff. So everyone has different kinks that get them off, but to me, it's
It took
United
a turn.
We Dominatrix.
It took a turn, guys.
So
I know what
but
Mike's
to
last
me,
call is going to be.
That's what it is.
Yeah, we should get into last calls though, because like Eric Hild is the only one listening at this point. So unless anyone has anything else they want to wrap up.
I no. So yeah, we'll get into last calls. The point in the show where we give each other an unspecific amount of time to talk about whatever it is that we want, kink related, not kink related. The only rules to this are that it is uninterrupted, unobjected, unopposed, and it seems only fair to start this off with our new co-host, Tim. What is your last call?
So, this podcast used to ask guests what their Taco Bell order was. So I want to talk about a restaurant chain here in the Twin Cities called Zantigos. Back in the 80s, it was they had like, I don't know, like 80 to 100 locations. They got purchased by KFC. Pepsi bought KFC. Pepsi already had Taco Bell, and they merged the brands, and so it went away. But you can thank a Minnesota Mexican restaurant for a chili cheese burrito, because Taco Bell did not have that on the menu, and they absorbed that. So any chili cheese burrito from Taco Bell, you can thank them. But anyway, a former general manager reopened up the chain, licensing, and I've eaten it 3 days in a row, and I am not ashamed.
It's not opposed. It's just a question. Like, is it like a lot of locations, or is it just like a handful?
I don't know how many. Actually, it's funny. One of the original locations back in the 80s that had closed and sat dormant, they reopened there here recently, on 7th Street in St. Paul. I think there's maybe only a dozen now.
Okay.
It's like better Taco Bell. That's the way I'll put it.
To some people, that's blasphemy. What you just said.
Well, they are welcome to come to Minnesota and go to Zantigo
and fight you.
Oh yeah, no, I'll be there. Taco in mouth, guac running down my cheeks, ready to go.
Kevin.
Well, inspired by Tim, I'm doing my last call on Chi-Chi's, another Midwestern chain of Mexican
Minnesota.
restaurant. No, I'm actually not doing that, but I do miss Chi-Chi's. I think they gave everyone botulism and had to
the celebration of food.
The celebration of food, exactly. No, I am. I was talking with a friend via text, and he was telling me about a song that he'd heard that just really, really moved him. And uh, we were kind of texting back and forth, and I was saying how, there are songs that absolutely destroy me. They bring me to tears almost every time I hear them. Songs that are just so important to my life and kind of speak to my soul. And then I got to thinking, what are those songs? And then I got to thinking, I could make a list of those songs, and I could tell everybody that listens to this show all the great songs that absolutely destroy me for one reason or the other. So I'm going to give you a list. This is not a comprehensive list of these songs by any means. I could do 200 of these, but no one wants to hear that. But this is a list of songs that, if you are like me in any way, and by the way, I hope you're not, you will absolutely touch you to the very fiber of your being. The song that was in question that I also agree with was the song from the Barbie movie, What Was I Made For by Billie Eilish. That was the subject of the original text message. But here's the rest of the list. By Warren Zevon, Keep Me in Your Heart and Empty Hearted Town. Bruce Springsteen, Terry's Song and Reason to Believe. Steve Earle's Lonelier Than This. Taylor Swift's Invisible String. Gordon Lightfoot, Early Morning Rain. Pete Rock and CL Smooth, They Reminisce Over You. Tim Minchin, White Wine in the Sun. Death Cab for Cutie, I Will Follow You Into the Dark. The Mountain Goats, No Children and Love, Love, Love. Otis Redding, Try a Little Tenderness. Elvis Costello, What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding. Ghostface Killah, All That I Got Is You. The Pogues, Fairy Tale of New York and A Pair of Brown Eyes. Bob Seger, Jody Girl. Syl Johnson, Is It Because I'm Black? Lenny and the Piss Poor Boys, Leaving in the Morning. The Shins, Past and the Pending and Comet Appears. Bob Dylan, Simple Twist of Fate. Lucero, The War, and Radiohead, Gagging Order. Now listen, once again, not a comprehensive list. And if you want to go back and listen to that and go and kind of delve into those songs, each one of those songs is emotional and beautiful and speaks to the joy and the pain of life in some way, shape, or form. And there's a quote by Bob Dylan that is really appropriate when I think about this song and how music can touch you. And it's goes, I'm frightened by the awful truth of how sweet life can be.
Thank you for that. Now, next month, my wife is going out of town for a couple of days. I'll queue up a playlist when the boys are down and just cry for the rest of the night.
Very
sounds like a good
therapeutic.
time.
Very therapeutic, Mike.
My last call is bordering on the plugging thing. I take that back. It's absolutely my plugging thing, but I couldn't really come up with two different things for this particular week. So I'm just going to roll this into my last call. As I kind of mentioned a little bit ago and completely unplanned on that, I really love photography and I love art and I love combining that into the beer world. And I think that there are a lot of really good brands out there who do that as well. And I think that there are ways that people could do better with their brands who aren't doing that right now, with not needing to have thousands of dollars worth of equipment and or people who are really good at it. I know that sounds like I'm cutting myself down, but by the time that this comes out, I will have released a post on my website, mikelovesbeer.com, that is kind of like a guide to tips and tricks to taking better photos of your beers for your brand. It is a weird little list. It is in no way teaching you photography basics. I'm not teaching you how to use your camera or what certain settings on your cameras are. There are videos on YouTube that you can find for that are also from people who are more why can't I talk? Who are better suited to explain those things to you than I. This is basically for like if you're using your phone or you don't have a great camera, like little things that you can do to improve your photography. It's not an easy thing. I'm not trying to make your job easier. It's actually a lot of work, but if you care about your product and you care about how it is presented, I would really encourage you to go and take a look and see if it helps you at all. At least ways of how to look at setting up a photo, locations, coming up with inspiration, and just little tricks and tools that you can use to get a good shot. Because we all shop with our eyes first with everything. So yeah, go check out my website. That's our website, MikeLovesBeer.com. And it should be the thing right on the top there. So awesome if you're interested. Kevin, do you want to plug anything?
I do actually. Barrel of Monks Brewing, a little brewery in Boca Raton, Florida, is celebrating its 9th anniversary here on the, hold on, checks his phone, 23rd of this month, actually a couple days after this podcast will first drop. It's our 9th anniversary. We're going to do the typical anniversary stuff. We're going to have a live band. We're going to have some special beers. We have a beer that we're releasing called Whiskeyed Thistle. Man, was that not a great idea? Because that's hard to say. But it is a Scotch ale that's aged in bourbon barrels. It's really, really good. And we'll have a bunch of other beers there that day. And it'll be really cool. If you're in South Florida and you want to stop by, we'll have some guest drafts. It'll be a good time. And also, as always, please check out the Old Favorite Friday videos. I just found, Mike, you might be interested in this because we did the whole episode about like beers that we used to love that we can't find anymore or we're retired. Can't remember the name of the episode, but we mentioned Smutty Nose, and I went on their website and saw all those great beers that they used to have. I found Smutty Nose finest ale, IPA or finest IPA, and I found the Robust Porter on the shelves
really?
at Total Wine, which I don't know. They might have been there forever, but they had rebranded and it looks totally different. I didn't see it, but
Were there day codes on there?
Oh no, those day code. I mean, the beer was fresh.
Okay.
I'm just saying that they may have been there, and I just didn't realize we still had Smutty Nose in South Florida, or they might have been in and out of the market. Anyway, I just did a Old Favorite Friday on the IPA. It was so good. I was brought back to a simpler time when beers were complex and not one-dimensional, and so that we will be up on our social media soon. And please give us a like and a follow if you like hearing about really, really good beers that people don't appreciate as much as they should.
Tim, you want to plug anything?
Wade Boggs Carpet World. It's a 30 Rock reference. Someone's gonna get it.
Well, I will plug Wade Boggs drinking beers on Cross Country Flight, and then the Sunny guys trying to replicate it or beat it or something. That was the episode, I think. Yeah.
We started on baseball. We're back to baseball because the end of that episode is Mac and Charlie on a baseball field, which is a great, great scene.
United We Baseball.
Yeah, we could change up that initial on the end there. Well, Tim, great to have you on board for this. If you didn't like this, tough shit. And that was to you, Tim, and because you're stuck with us now. I have the contract. You signed it. You don't remember it, but you did. And then also to the listeners, if you didn't like it, tough shit.
I just wonder why you signed a 25-year contract. That's a long time, Tim. We're not even going to be doing this. You'll be doing this by yourself.
Oh, you think I'm going to be alive in 25 years? That's very
Ambitious.
generous.
He didn't even have his agent reach out to me. He has no union help in this whole thing.
Well, he's only signed for 10 years, but we have to pay him for like 35. It's like the Dodgers with Shohei.
Or Bobby Bonilla.
We are going to be paying you for a very long time. Well, it is awesome to have you on board for this little silly ride that we do every couple weeks.
Yeah, no, I'm very grateful you guys asked me on. I wasn't joking when I said that I literally have like shouted at no one in my car listening to this on the way into work. So I'm glad that I now get to shout it. Yeah, it's Kevin. Let's be honest.
And a lot of times you would then text me after you had shouted at your car, like, I should have done this first.
Yeah, well, no, I remember literally one time I texted you at like 5 a.m. the day you released it. You're like, "Why are you listening to this already? This is silly." But I am very grateful to be able to join you guys and chat because man, as far as I'm concerned, this is just three friends talking about beer and liquid. So yeah, love it.
Cheers to that.
Yes. And if you want to follow our show on social, we are at United We Drink on Twitter and Blue Sky. We're at United We Drink Pod on Instagram and Threads. We're on Facebook as well. We're on all of those major podcast apps such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Overcast, Podcast Addict, wherever you find your fine podcasts, we are there. Subscribe to the show so that you get brand new episodes delivered to the device of your choice every other Thursday. If you want to support the show financially, check out our website, unitedwedrink.com. We have the Brands We Love page where you can find stuff like Maiden Cookware, Trade Coffee, Liquid Death Water, and so much other stuff. You click on those links and buy something, and we get a little kickback from that. We also have our store, unitedwedrink.com/store, with shirts, buttons, stickers, totes, and other fun stuff over there. We will be back here in a couple more weeks with a brand new episode. Thank you, everyone, once again, and we'll see you later. Cheers.
Cheers.